Okay, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion by
So
Hall.
moved by Romano.
Moved by Romano, supported by Ha. Please vote.
That motion passes 11-0.
Okay, thank you. Public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard? We'll start with telephones. *6 to unmute. Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone wish to be heard? Anyone online wish to be heard? Okay, I don't see any. One more time, anyone online? Okay, we'll move on from public participation. General budget discussion, 2021 budget session is Steve Smiegel in? Steve?
I am.
Okay, so we'll open up with you, our finance director, Steve Smiegel.
I wasn't sure what you wanted me to talk about, but the budget packets should be going out tomorrow. We're going to give everyone a month, as we normally do, to send their information back. And then we will then, of course, engage with all the department heads and electeds over the course of the month of August. Hopefully we can get all that wrapped up by the end of August, and then start putting final numbers together, including the capital plan, and get the document to the board by the end of September. This budget cycle is a little out of sorts, if you will. And, you know, we started submitting it in September of last year. I think that was a good thing. It gives us time to vet things more thoroughly. This year is going to be a little more compressed because of the coronavirus, obviously. I'm not sure if commissioners have had an opportunity to talk with Chairman Smith or Patty, but we're looking at about a $13.5 million deficit at this point based on preliminary numbers. We had a conference call or a WebEx meeting with all the elected officials and executive department heads today to alert them to that, and essentially asking for all departments and electeds to trim their budgets by about 5% for 2021. I mentioned, I think last month, you know, a portion of the issue is revenue loss as a result of the coronavirus. Those issues are still persisting, of course, with interest rates being historically low, real estate activity being reduced, so reducing things like transfer tax. We still don't know about revenue sharing. We've anticipated and placed in the budget a 25% reduction for 2021, which is about $4.1 million. State's having another revenue sharing conference, I think in July or August. Commissioner Kraft may have more insight into that. I'm not sure, but they could likely reduce revenue sharing by even more than 25%. But anyway, that's sort of what we're looking at and what the timeline is going to look like going forward.
Okay, before I call on you, Commissioner Gillette, I want to first get a motion to receive and file.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Seconded by Leonetti.
Okay, moved by Carabelli, supported by Leonetti, and if you'll give me just a second, Commissioner Gillette. Chair Smith, do you want to say anything before we open it up for general discussion?
No, just, Steve, I don't know if you heard earlier, we put a summary out just a little while ago of what we heard in this morning to everybody, included a few of the things that you just said. So, I mean, it's up to you. It's if you could give a little bit, of what you gave this morning or a little bit more of it, that would be great. But we did get a summary out to everybody on what you guys anticipate the major issues are coming in the next few years.
Yeah, I did not see the summary you're referring to, Chair Smith.
It did not come up. We
Yeah.
just sent it to our members right now. We're going to send it to you just to make sure that we're on the right track and that we heard everything that you said correctly. But so if you want to give a little quick dissertation, that would be great if you feel that's appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know if I have too much to add other than folks are being asked to, reduce their budgets by 5%. And that could be in personnel, it could be in operating, those are basically the two categories that it's going to have to come from. And it can be through attrition, we're hoping, through vacancies that arise or the elimination of, current vacancies or unfunding or not funding current vacancies that in this year that would carry over into next year. If you have planned retirements, folks will be asked to, hold those open and not fill them, that sort of thing. If there's any kind of revenue increases that certain departments may be able to come up with, that always is, an opportunity there for us to reduce the shortfall. The overall budget expenditures in the general fund, as we have preliminarily prepared them, are indicating an increase of about 2.4%. So the largest category, of course, is personnel. That is showing about a 1.9% increase, which is essentially the increases in the full-time wages and part-time wages that are built into the into the current labor agreements. The other portion that is resulting in a little bit of increase is in capital projects. We put in a placeholder for some of the mortgage expansion that may not be covered by the CARES Act, as well as some additional debt service. Still anticipating possibly issuing new debt in 2021 for projects in 21 and 22, primarily at the Verkulen building in Southeast Health and maybe the boathouse. So I guess my comment on that is the overall budget at this point is showing a 2.4% increase, which doesn't seem unreasonable to me when you compare it to inflation. And if everybody's able to, meet their budgetary goals that we are asking them to meet, then it will be under 2%. We still have the issue on the revenue side, though, with the impact on fees and interest and revenue sharing and other things relative to the coronavirus that may, carry over into 2022 as well. So.
Okay. And one of the reasons this was on the agenda was to find out if commissioners had anything in particular they wanted to discuss about the upcoming budget, be it process or anything else. So I'll call on Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Steve, for the presentation. I want to go back a little bit earlier, maybe a few weeks ago, when we were talking about how the budget was handling the coronavirus situation. And you had mentioned at one point that we were actually at that point running a little bit under budget when it came to expenditures at that time, maybe 1 or 2% under budget. Has that changed at all? And aside from the CARES Act, the CARES Act obviously was a very substantial amount of money. But if it wasn't for that CARES Act, how would we be doing financially? Approximately where we had targeted with the budget, a little below in spending, a little above in spending.
Aside from the revenue impacts of the coronavirus, prior to that and continuing since, we have been running under budget on expenses, primarily in personnel. I can tell you that on the operating side, we have some delayed reporting, I guess I'll refer to it as, coming from some of our vendors, I think, because of their own issues with coronavirus. I do expect some operating expenses to still be under budget. Utilities, I mentioned before, prisoner meals at the jail, jail medical. We don't have hardly, anybody in the hospital. And there's only about 300 prisoners in the jail to begin with. So on the kind of the true operating costs, I do expect some savings there. We'll know more at the end of June. I think we'll have about 3 months of coronavirus experience under our belt at that point. But prior to coronavirus, we were experiencing about a 2 to 3% savings on personnel costs in the general fund, at least.
Okay.
That's a significant amount of money, and that's continued.
Okay. And the anticipated reason why we were looking at having challenges in 2021 budget is because primarily of revenue sharing and real estate market.
Yeah, we've shown very, very significant decreases in interest revenue. Interest rates are basically at zero. And real estate activity, although prices seem to be holding steady from everything I read, the volume is down quite significantly. So the number of transactions is down. And again, we'll know more in a week or 10 days when we get to the end of the month relative to that. We did budget a 2% increase in property taxes for next year. So that's offsetting some of the revenue loss. We also had anticipated a natural slowdown in the economy a year ago for 2021. So we'd already built some revenue loss in. The state is moving out of the Majestic Center and the Rakulin building at the end of the year. So we're losing rent revenue to the tune of about 1.6 million. The Fed had been lowering interest rates all along. So, in the last year or so, we had already built some loss in on revenues. So 2021 was going to be a challenge to begin with, and now we have more revenue loss as a result of the coronavirus.
Yeah, the coronavirus had this odd effect on our budget. In some ways, if you take the human tragedy, if you can look aside from that for a second, it's in some ways reduced our expenditures, and then we received this, substantial amount of money equal to 54% of our general fund to deal with the coronavirus, creating I guess you could say, a difficulty in finding the best way to apply those funds that meets the legal requirements. In some ways we have, quote, too much money, but we can't spend it where we need it, which is going to be in next year's budget, where we've got this, where the results of the slowdown will be affected, will be fully felt. I imagine that you probably know the parameters of the federal government CARES Act money. There's just no provision for that money to be applied toward some of the revenue losses on that side. I'm sure. Is that correct?
That is correct as it currently is written.
Okay. It'd be great if there's a way to smooth that out. We can apply that towards some of our needs next year, where because of those needs will be unfunded because of the, what's happened with state revenue sharing and so forth. But I guess that's the only question I had. It was just an overall, parameters, make sure I understood the view of this right. So thank you, Steve, for your thoughts on that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, I don't have any of the numbers in front of me. I know you gave them to us before. What's coming off of our books next year? Isn't there some bonds that are being retired?
Next year, very little. The following year, I believe there may be $1 million. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, so I don't want to speak, too authoritatively. But for next year, there wasn't too much falling off, if I remember correctly.
Okay, when you get a chance, if you can forward that back over to the board and what years they're falling off, what the yearly payment is, and what it's falling off, so we can look at that as we're making decisions coming up.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Steve, my concern is, given everything that's happened, and also the pandemic, as well as all the protests and everything that that is being discussed with regard to public safety, I'm really concerned that we're not going to be able to pass anything to address the jail. You're talking about future bonding for the other projects, and I think that given, are you guys having discussions about the possibility that this just might come down and hit us on the head because we simply can't get anything passed? Is there any discussion about that internally?
I'm not quite understanding your question. Maybe you can restate it a little bit.
Okay. We were gonna do a bond to build a new jail, and then we were gonna do a revised bond to do a smaller project. But all this stuff has happened since then, and if you look at everything that's going on, all the discussions with regard to public safety and national discussions about revamping it and everything else, the climate to put money into a jail may not be good. Are you guys having, you're talking about bonding for other projects, and I'm worried that try as we might, we're not going to get anything passed jail-wise, given everything that's happened this year. It's just not going to be the type of thing that residents are going to be rushing to put money into. I'm concerned. That means we're going to have a bunch of huge repairs sitting on top of us regarding the jail down the road. And you're talking about bonding for other projects. Are there discussions internally about how this is going to really start weighing on our head and could become a major problem?
There are. I can't really share too much, very preliminary at this point, but we are talking about, what's happening. Fortunately, we aren't really putting much money into the jail this year. That's a good thing. But going forward, if the population stays 300 or 400, we may not be using parts of the jail. Maybe the overall annual repair cost kind of stays at a reasonable level, but we'll be having those discussions with the sheriff department when we go through their budget for sure.
Right. And I'm not asking you to get into the internal discussions at this point, because there may be debates taking place about this. I just want to make sure, as you're discussing bonding out for other projects, that this is part of your conversation about the direction of the future.
Yeah, duly noted.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other speakers. Commissioner Gillette.
Madam Chair, if I could just on the second round.
Yes, I just called on you.
Oh, sorry, I was unmuting myself. Steve, you're not the right person for me to bring this up to, but I'm going to bring it up at every chance I can because you're part of the administration, and that is looking to find a better use for the Juvenile Justice Center, which is relatively new compared to the jail building that sits 90% vacant 90% of the time. And it's right on the campus with the jail. So I brought this up with the executive. I brought it up with Vicki. There's been discussion about looking at it, but I really think, given the environment that Commissioner Chair Kleinfeld just discussed, that we may need to get more creative with how we can better utilize that relatively new building sitting right next to the jail that is essentially useless. So if you could just find a way to represent that as being my thoughts in any future budget meetings regarding the jail that I'm not, unfortunately, not a part of potentially, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
I realize that's not your area, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
When you're gone, we'll make sure to think about what was it that Leon wanted.
No, it's an empty building. It's relatively new. It's just sitting right next to the jail doing nothing.
I know, it was just the way that you said that. Thank you very much. All right, so I don't see anyone else wishing to speak. So we have a motion and support. Please vote.
Madam Chair, when Leon's gone, I'm not going to think of what he said.
That motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so
I can't even remember what I said now.
Why? For some reason, I thought we had minutes on here before, but I don't see them. That was it, right? Okay. New business. Before I, oh wait, department recommendations, ordinance 2020, sorry, -5, June year end ends fund budget appropriations ordinance. So first I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Haas, there's support.
Support.
Support by Duge. Okay, who wants to speak to this?
I can speak to it. This is one of our recurring mid-year budget amendments I will refer to. And primarily in the Office of Michigan Works, or Chris Riley's operation. His department operates on a June year end, and there's also the weatherization program and a couple of minor programs over at Community Action that also have a June year end. And of course, that's fast approaching. So we do this again in September for the September funds, where we have the board adopt sort of a temporary appropriations ordinance, if you will, to provide those departments appropriations to continue their operations through the end of the year, up until the point in time we actually have an adopted budget for next year. These programs do not have any general fund contribution associated with them. They're all federally funded. And so what we're asking the board to do is to appropriate 50% of this year's budget going forward from July 1st through no later than December 31st.
Okay, I don't see any speakers. Does anybody want to speak on this? All right, with that, please vote.
That motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Okay, new business. Before I open it up to everybody else, I am up for re-election on the Michigan Association of Counties Board of Directors. So if anybody wants to run for the seat, just letting you know, they're taking names now. It will be a little bit awkward if one of you knocked me out and I'm supposed to be president next year. This is a very unusual thing. I could face opposition from anywhere in the 5-county area that I represent. They don't usually have somebody that's going to be president that could possibly be knocked out of the seat. But just wanted to let you guys know that you're allowed to throw your hat in the ring. It'll be difficult to work with me afterwards, but I'm letting you know. Does anyone else want to speak under new business?
I do.
Commissioner Ha.
By the way, you have my vote. You don't have to worry about knocking you out. You're doing a fine job. Steve, I have a question for you. Did he leave?
No, I'm still here.
When you talked about the budget and the impact moving forward, you talked about head count and positions. Do you consider not filling a position and eliminating a position synonymous with each other?
No. So eliminating the funding for the position, but not eliminating the position. So we would footnote, the idea would be that in the back of the budget document, we would footnote positions that as not being funded. So a department would have to come forward and say, well, we know that so-and-so is retiring next year. We're not going to fill that position for 2021. Okay. Or we have current set of vacancies. We aren't going to fill those, and then reevaluate at the end of the year. So they don't really lose the position, but if they have to have a plan to lose the funding for the position.
Great. Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak under new business? I don't have any other speakers, so we will move on to public participation. Anybody on the phone, please hit *6 if you'd like to speak. Anyone like to speak? Okay, and now anyone that is on the meeting with us, if you'd like to speak, please indicate so. All right, seeing none, we'll close public participation.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Leonetti, supported by Ha. Please vote.
I don't know about that.
I'm voting no.
All right, and with that,
See you all tomorrow.
we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Nice.
Hey,